The newest chapter of One Piece reintroduced the figure of legendary explorer Louise Arnote, but you may not remember who this character is, or the fact that we've actually seen this silhouetted character before, all the way back during Fishman Island. On top of that, we also need to break down how the Bifrost Rainbow Bridge works, the geography of Elbaph, and the beautiful stunning sights of the Elbaph village. So let's not waste any more time and dive into the adventure in the land of Elbaph. The chapter's title parallels the title seen in the start of many One Piece arcs of Adventure in the XXX, but in this case it's been a double feature, as just a few chapters ago we had the title Adventure in the Country of Mystery, but since that was just Oda tricking us about the true scale of Elbaph, now here we finally have the real proper title of this adventure, simply being Adventure in Elbaph. This isn't particularly new to have two per arc, as we already had Adventure in the Devil's Sea and Adventure in the Ghost Island for Thriller Bark, Adventure in the Deep Sea and Adventure in Fishman Island, and Adventure in the Country of Love, Passion and Toys, and Adventure in the Country of Little People for Dressrosa. On the cover, Yamato, Komachi, Tama, and Speed leave Kuri in search of the Sword Thief and arrive at Udon, where they witness the construction of Udon Castle, rebuilding the area into a proper settlement rather than just a prison. The prison in the background, you might notice, still retains its factories, but none of the chimneys are spewing smoke, and the skies are clear and clean. We saw that Oden's vassals are becoming the new daimyo of Wano. Denjiro is the daimyo of Kibi, Inuarashi is the daimyo of Kuri, while Neko Amushi seems to now just be a yakuza at the capital, while Kinemon serves as Momonosuke's aide. This leaves us with Raizo, Kiku, and Kawamatsu, who will likely take the remaining three regions of Udon, Hakumai, and Ringo. Kiku was born in Ringo, so it would make sense if she became the daimyo of that region. Oden met Raizo at Udon, and Raizo himself was born at Udon too, so it would make sense as the daimyo as well. However, Kawamatsu was also jailed there for many years, so it could be a toss-up between the two of them. Back at Elbaph, the great Eric approaches land, as a loud horn blows from the ship as indicated by the zigzagging speech bubble. If you look closely at the ship too, you can see that the rear of it has been smashed. This is from when Luffy and Bonnie pounded Saturn at Anghad, causing him to fall off the ship as they broke the rear end of it. The horn warns the people of the tavern found at sea level that they are returning. This is the same tavern Shanks was eating in before he destroyed Kid's forces, as we even see the same little kid that Shanks refused to let on his crew, who turns out to be called Collon. While we don't know his age, he could easily be like 18 years old, as Hyruddin looked like a kid as well at such an age due to how slowly giants age. We don't get the name of the tavern keeper, but she remarks how the giants were running late. Jesse was mentioned a few chapters ago that their search for the missing Sunny made them spend some time looking around. Funnily enough, the tavern keeper is carrying an apron that has "War" written on it, likely a reference to the Warland Kingdom. She hands over a basket of food to Collon, which she claims contains Ripley's favorite food and some food the kid's father will like too, seemingly referring to two different people. We don't know yet who this Ripley in the village is, or who Collon's dad is, and if he is someone we already know of. Collon refers to Dori Ambrogi with the nickname of Doriburo Sencho or Captain's Dobro. Interestingly, Dori and Broggy are referred to by many giants as Okashira, which means bosses. This is similar to how Shanks' crew calls him, which is the name of Okashira or Big Boss. So I wonder if there is some connection there. Speaking of Shanks, he told Collon to never forget Luffy's name, and as Collon leaves, some giants also mention an upcoming banquet that they are seemingly going to hold above, likely the same banquet for which Hyruddin and Stanson caught the Etosaurus, or, well, moose as Hyruddin seems to insist. By the way, notice above the tavern there is a mask that is quite similar to Rhodes, as these skull decorations are quite common in the buildings of Elbaph. The great Eric then approaches a giant rainbow, which they suddenly begin to ride, leading them all the way up to the second level of Elbaph. A rainbow was already visible in the big spread of Elbaph, and as we predicted, this is obviously inspired by the Bifrost. The Bifrost is the rainbow bridge of Norse mythology that connects the realms of Midgard, or the lower earth itself, and Asgard, the realm of the gods in the sky. Much like how in Norse mythology the Bifrost is crossed to reach the heavenly realm, the same happens here to reach the village of Elbaph. It is foretold that the Bifrost would be destroyed during Ragnarok, so perhaps when Loki is freed, the rainbow could cease to work. It's not completely clear how the science behind the rainbow works quite yet. Broggy claims to have drawn, as in like a painting, the rainbow itself by using a painter, which explains its name, as they are literally just painting a rainbow. As we explained last last chapter, Stansen brought up a painter to get back to the upper realm. Though it phonetically reads as painter, the kanji reading reads as Taiyoseki or sunstone. Sunstones were a type of compass believed to have been created by Vikings, as reflecting them against the sky would allow them to look at the sun even in an overcast sky. A sunstone literally refracts the sun's light into the colors of the rainbow, the very same process seen in the logo for Pink Floyd if you're familiar with that. As such, it is possible with the right conditions for a sunstone to refract light into a rainbow, so the giants may have used it to help generate a rainbow, likely made easier due to all the water falling from the waterfalls of Elbaph. That's why Stansen mentioned that with the snow, they couldn't use a painter to get up above, as it couldn't generate a rainbow, but now that the skies have cleared, they are able to get up more easily. How this rainbow then turns into a crossable current is a whole other scientific question, that perhaps it could be a process similar to island clouds. Perhaps the mixing of pyroblowing particles from nearby sky islands into the light makes it solid, turning the rainbow into a sea current. Bunny even mentions that the rainbow itself makes a sparkling noise, or kira kira in Japanese, literally audibly sparkling, so it's kind of like a river, but it makes a sparkling noise. Hyrodine and Stansen catch up in a smaller ship, also bearing the symbol of the giant warrior pirates, and the Ectosaurus can be seen on it as well. They recognize Frankie and Robin from Dressrosa, calling Frankie Iron Man, referring to his pirate epithet. On the back of his jacket you can also spot a star similar to those he usually has on his shoulders. Switching back to Luffy's side, he runs into Gerd and Goldberg. Gerd is shown to be very fascinated by humans, which he finds adorable, though tries to distinguish herself from the likes of Road, whom she calls weirdo, or as Luffy calls him, Honeatama or hornhead. Unlike when speaking with Goldberg, she speaks much more candidly with humans, talking to them like one would talk with a puppy or a child, addressing humans as humans-chan. Goldberg instead has a speech pattern that sort of fits his personality, what I can only really compare as being similar to a lisp in English, such as him pronouncing the kana shi as shu, like deshu or deshuka. Interestingly, Luffy seems to have made a promise with Loki, and part of that involves not telling anyone about it. I know Luffy wanted to know more about Shanks, but would he really be willing to break Loki free just to know something that the other giants could easily tell him about? Just what did Loki tell Luffy, or what did he use on him to convince him to form a pact with him without telling anyone? Even Luffy, oddly enough, feels worried to let it out and tries to lie, which causes him to sweat so much that Goldberg grows worried. Road catches up to the Straw Hats, but they set a really simple trap against him, making him crash against a tree. Gerd and Goldberg also gave him a good ass kicking, as Road calls Gerd as Gerd-tasso as well, being a weirdo towards her as well. Brogy properly then explains the 3 layers of Elbaph, showing that there are 3 realms, unlike the 9 realms of Norse mythology. The first world is the actual land of the island, the lower part known as the Dai-ichiso Meikai, or first world, the underworld. They all end with kai, meaning world, but the first kanji in Meikai, me, is the word for darkness, though usually referring to the darkness of the underworld beneath the earth. This is the same me as Meo, or Dark King Rayleigh, more literally Underworld King Rayleigh, drawing a very obvious parallel with the King of Hell Zoro, both the right-hand mans of respective pirate kings. On top of the first leaves of the tree is the Dai Niso Yokai, or second world, the sun world. Here it uses yo, which is the second kanji for the word taiyo, the sun. And this is because this area is more bathed with sunlight than the one below, allowing for a more temperate climate as we see, which is why the village is located here. And finally, the top of the tree is called the Daisanso Tenkai, or third world, the sky world. The kanji used here, ten, means sky, though it can also mean celestial or refer to the heavens themselves. In fact, as an example, it is the very same kanji used for Tenryubito, the celestial dragons, who more literally simply translate as the sky dragons or heavenly dragons. We mentioned the possibility of there being something up there before at the top of the tree, but we don't seem to see anything from the panning shots, so I really wonder if there really is anything at the very top of the tree, as I wouldn't imagine they have a whole realm that has absolutely nothing in it. These 3 realms could still be loosely based off of Norse realms though. The lower realm of the underworld we we've established is likely inspired by Niflheim, the frozen hell realm of Norse myth. In this case, the sun realm could be considered Midgard, or literally the middle realm, or Jotunheimer, the realm of the giant Jotuns, but the fact that the Bifrost leads there could make it be considered like Asgarder already, the realm of the gods, as it better fits being in the middle point of the tree, just like Asgarder is for the Yggdrasil in Norse mythology. That would make one question though, that if this is Asgarder, then what is the realm at the very top of the tree, which would make more sense to be Asgarder in that regard than the one right here. Now this naming pattern already makes sense, but there is something peculiar about it that you may likely not have noticed. The names of these three planes are incredibly similar to the concept of the Trinity of Planes, that the world is divided into three different planes. Though coming more from the Greek mythology side, it was believed that the world was split into three planes: the underworld, the sea and the islands it harbors, and the sky. In Greek mythology, these three planes were governed by three gods: Pluton, Poseidon, and Uranus. And that should definitely ring a bell. In Japanese, the planets Pluton, Poseidon, or Neptune in English, and Uranus are named after the gods from the Trinity of Planes, being Meose, or underworld king planet, Kaiose, or seeking planet, and hence the whole connection with the seeking creatures, and Tenose, or sky king planet. And you might realize that Me from Pluton and Ten from Uranus are the exact same as the Me Kai and Ten Kai of Elbaph. Really, the only outlier here is the middle realm. Instead of being the realm of the sea, it's the Yokai, the realm of the sun, which is an unusual distinction focused more on the adoration Elbaph has for the sun than anything. So, is there really a connection here, or is it just a coincidence based on the idea of the Trinity of Planes? Moving on though, we get to finally properly see the village of Elbaph with our own eyes, and it's impossible not to feel emotional after all these years in what is one of Oda's most beautiful spreads to date, particularly with Luffy and Usopp recalling their desire to reach Elbaph all the way back during chapter 129, almost exactly 1,000 chapters ago, 25 years ago. You can even see the going merry within this panel because it's that far back. The irony of it all though is that this isn't actually a new location. No, in fact, we saw this back during 2017 in Big Mom's flashback within chapter 866, but within all those instances, the village was incredibly zoomed in, allowing us only to see a few houses and some hills in the background. A lot of people thought that this was actually on the lower land, but some people like me already questioned if this perhaps was actually on top of the tree. In fact, if you look closely, you can spot this lookout tower in the middle of the village in Big Mom's flashback also appearing in this spread as well, with the hills in the background even being the same and matching. However, Oda was already being cheeky back then, showing us the branches of the tree in a small panel in the background of Big Mom's flashback. Back to this chapter's panel though, we see that both land masses here are split apart, only connected by a bridge, likely sitting on two different branches. Across the great chasm, seagulls fly by while the waterfalls descend below. On the left we can see dirt and soil has accumulated on top of these branches, allowing for mountains or trees to sprout. Above it are Shimagumo or island clouds, just like those of Skypiea or those artificially created by Vegapunk, having hardened thanks to the volcanic substance known as pyrobloin, also involved in the creation of Kairoseki Sea Stone. Since Vegapunk mentioned visiting Elbaph after the Ohara incident to read the book Soul Preserved, I wonder if he studied the island clouds here too, which is what helped him develop the technology for many years later create the Lab of Face, though it's possible he may have learned thanks to Haredes as well, who also made the artificial sky island of Witheria in much the same way. These island clouds also finally answer a small mystery from Egghead, where Bonnie explained the Lab of Face to some giants who were rescuing her, and they already seemed familiar with the concept of sky islands because Elbaph already has them. Across the bridge, we follow through the streets of the village, though beneath it appears to be an inhabited structure as well, explaining all this rock that paves the road. roads. Heading upward is the village we saw in Lin's flashback, and to its right is a fairly large building that appears to be quite prominent, being attached to a large tree growing atop the treasure tree atom itself. Behind them is another rainbow, and to the left, at the edge of the village, are the gates to the royal castle. Said royal castle was mentioned in Big Mom's flashback and was actually visible in the large view of Elbaph, alongside the gates as well. The royal castle, sitting atop a branch and with its own waterfall flowing out of it, isn't as large as it seemed from the outside, but it's still quite big, so I wonder what its interiors look like as well. As a note, back during Little Garden, Dorian Broggy referred to their homeland as the village of Elbaph. Oda here addresses that potential plot hole by mentioning that the country as a whole is often referred to as just Elbaph, in a similar way that the Sky Island was often called Skypiea, despite Skypiea actually being the name of the country composed by a collection of islands, but people just kinda group it as a general term. As the Straw Hats arrive, all of them are fascinated by the sight of the village, with two exceptions. One is Sanji, who is busy doing his thing, and the other is Vegapunk, as Lilith has already been to this village before, or at least she was in her memory as Stella, which is why she just smiles and is happy to see everyone's reactions. The chapter ends with a narration. However, the fact it is written on journal paper like in Odin's diary means that this is a journal entry. It reads, "We are naturally fascinated by gigantic things. No words could capture the magnificence of this view. This is Elbaph Island's Whirlland Kingdom, the Kingdom of Giants, also collectively often referred to as whole, simply as Elbaph. From the grass to the trees, the vines to the flowers, bugs, fish and birds, creatures of all kinds, everything in this land is so gigantic it is simply breathtaking. Oh, ye adventurers, you will not regret your time spent here. However, if there is one thing I should mention about this mysterious land of gigantic things called Elbaph, I hope you can keep these words on the back of your mind. Do not remain here for too long. Explorer Louis Arnote." This name either means nothing to you or it means everything to you, because Louis Arnote is a very insignificant character in the manga so far, but an incredibly accomplished person within the world of One Piece itself. Back during the start of Little Garden in 1999, in chapter 115, Nami read from a book she had on the Going Merry that she seemingly took from her home in Kokoyashi village. The book is Fiction Romance Bragman, and it contained this account. To its inhabitants, the island truly is but a tiny little garden. Therefore, let us call it such. Island of Giants, Little Garden. Explorer Louis Arnote. As Oda elaborated in the volume 42 SBS, Louis Arnote was a seasoned explorer from recent times, born on the Grand Line. He decided to set out to sea as an explorer and seek uncharted lands, bearing witness to many of the fantastical locations of the Grand Line with his own eyes, along with his crew of fearless adventurers. He compiled the tales of he and his crew into a book meant to give direct eyewitness descriptions of places across the world. However, his descriptions of islands were so bizarre and surreal that people believed he was actually a false adventurer passing his own fiction as reality. As such, his journal of his and his crew's accounts was eventually collected and published under the humiliating title of Fictional Romance Bragman. Keep in mind, romance in Japanese refers more to the adventure, like in Romance Dawn, the Dawn of Adventure, so title literally means fictional adventures of men pretending to brag. This book survived the burning of Ohara 20 years ago and has become widely available across the world, having been reproduced many times since. This gives us a good time frame of Arnote's existence, as it had to have been over 20 years ago, but it also can have been in distant ancient times, as he did meet Dorian Broggy on Little Garden over the past century. In fact, he was the one who gave the name to Little Garden, named after the fact that to Dorian Broggy, who were already dueling there, the island may as well have just been a little garden. Bragman had not only been read by a younger Nami, but also by a younger Masked Deuce and Purgas the Ace in the Ace novel manga, where he too was fascinated about the existence of giants that was bullied by those ignorant within the East Blue who believed them to just be fictional beings. Speaking of quoted people, there's also Willie Gallen, the person that made the quote of "anything that mankind mankind can imagine is a possibility in reality when the St. Brice fell on the Straw Hats, and Ju Wall, an adventurer recording the unpleasantness of Mocktown when the Straw Hats got there. So I wonder if we'll see both of those in the future as well. Now, it's possible that Louis Arnote may simply have been an adventurer who came and went and is now dead, and Ode is just doing a cool callback to Little Garden. However, there's a potential way this could be read, and it's the fact that Louis Arnote maybe is in fact alive and currently present at Elbaph, being the person on the final page right alongside this message. It may be a bit hard to see, but if you zoom in beneath the large Teroguma bear, there's a person walking across the leaves. They seem to be wearing a Wano-style Amigasa hat, and their hair appears to be long and spiky. They appear to have something coming out of the face, but it's unclear if this is just a hand, a beard, a chin, a gas mask, or whatever else it may be. However, this silhouette fits two that we've previously seen. For one, it seems quite evident that this is the person we saw at chapter 1124. While hard to see, they did seem to have a hat similar to this Amigasa one, and it just makes sense that Ode is teasing the same silhouette, so I think we can safely assume that this is likely the same person. All we saw of this figure is that it sat by Elbaph and simply said, "Come," seemingly expecting the Straw Hats to arrive. The other one is the mysterious figure seen in chapter 631's cover. As we saw places around the world, we saw a rather peppy Crocus exchanging sake cups with this mysterious figure as Laboon looked on. In the colored manga, they appear to have a similar Amigasa hat, just like that of our silhouette here, and are drinking sake just as the silhouette was seen drinking. Furthermore, this figure had spiky blonde hair, which would fit the silhouette as well. It would make sense if this silhouette was the same from chapter 631, but just who is this person? After all, they seem to be old friends with Crocus, paying them a visit recently in the early time skip. Well, it's been well over a decade since that chapter cover, so people have had plenty of time to speculate since. A lot of people like to think that it's Shiki, somehow back and about to get involved again in the story, but personally, given his presence here, don't quite think that's him. Though the cape does bear a striking color resemblance, Shiki has far bigger and more flowing hair, and most importantly, he has a massive steering wheel stuck to his skull, meaning he simply cannot wear a hat like this one.
However, given how Shiki took so many of his creatures that he used at Merville during Strong World from Elbaph, as has been evident from the recent chapters, then maybe this really could actually be him. Some people even think that this could be Scopper Gaban, the former left-hand man of Roger, or any other type of characters, so we're definitely not start for speculation here.
Another theory I actually quite fancy is that this was Calico Yorkie, the former captain of the Rumber Pirates. We know that Yorkie fell ill with what seemed to be a disease very similar to tree fever, the disease from Nolan's flashback. Thus, Yorkie had to leave the Grand Line through the Calm Belt, making Brook the captain and forcing the crew to continue on their own. Someone who witnessed this told Crocus, leading him to believe the Rumber Pirates simply ran away from Laboon, until Luffy confirmed the truth later with Brook. However, we never found out if Yorkie and the other infected found a cure and survived. I mean, if Gin somehow survived a deadly gas toxin that should have killed him in an hour, I don't see how Yorkie couldn't. They may have potentially recovered, but it does bring into question of where they went, as re-entering the Grand Line would have caused them to meet with Laboon, unless they went back through it through another method. Either way, the theory was that this figure was Yorkie, now older and with longer of his blonde hair, finally dropping by the Twin Capes to share a toast with Crocus and Laboon. Technically speaking, Brook is now 90, so Yorkie, if he was slightly younger, could still be alive. But this theory still feels like a stretch in some form or another, and a lot of people feel that it would take away from the impact of Brook finally meeting Laboon again. The most boring answer of all, though, is that this person is in fact a new character, some traveling figure in the Grand Line who knew Crocus in the past and is now at Elbaph. But in that regard, there is a simpler connection, that this is someone we know, Louis Arnote himself. As I mentioned before, the chapter narration of Arnote overlapping with this figure appearing would make sense if they are one and the same, and would also make a lot of sense if such an accomplished explorer knew Crocus as well after all those travels. But if so, why did this person come or return to Elbaph? Especially since they appear to be human-sized. What is their business here, and what is the danger that Arnote spoke of? Is Arnote the person in question, hence why he is back at Elbaph despite the danger, or is it perhaps the other way around, that this person is the danger itself that Arnote Arnote spoke of, and maybe even be the villain or a dangerous moving force within this arc? Well, all our answers will come as we get lost in this beautiful adventure in the land of Elbaph.